San Jose Earthquakes have completed their two 2024 Leagues Cup group stage games against Chivas and LA Galaxy. Despite being moments away in both games from sealing our fate and advancing out of the group, we instead find ourselves in the position of needing the Galaxy to get a result against Chivas this Sunday. While those results didn't go exactly according to plan, there's still a lot of positives to take away from both games. They aren't with fault, but the Quakes have continued to improve at the team and individual levels. We're the Quakesaholics, and today we'll be giving our thoughts on the Quakes Leagues Cup group stage so far. So, starting off chronologically, let's talk about the Chivas game. What do you think, Luis?
It was really good to see Bobosi get a goal. I know that he's been struggling in front of goal, especially against especially in the performance he had against Minnesota and on a few other occasions this season. But good to see him get that goal. I feel like from the very beginning, the whole team was bought in. I don't know if it was the atmosphere, which we'll probably get onto, but or the fact that it's a clean slate, having it be a Leagues Cup and all. But whatever it was, they looked like they were up for it from the very beginning. They were winning their duels. They were making runs. Everyone was, contributing, putting their work in. And I thought that we were really good. I think that tactically as well, the way we were set up was great. I thought that, Chivas technically they were pretty good, but I think that we were more dominant than them physically, which was what helped in the duels, and then also had the speed to hurt them on the transition, which is something that Ian Russell alluded to in the post-match interview. I remember him talking about how it didn't take long for him to realize that Earthquakes were going to have a good game.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said, but really the biggest thing for me was that we were winning our individual duels. And I mean, going into this game, we definitely thought, and we as in probably Quakes fans in general and us, that Liga MX teams are better because they have a lot of technical ability, and that's what gets them results. But I think what we've seen throughout Leagues Cup so far is that MLS teams haven't really struggled that much. I remember at the time of these games, I think it was only like one or two games that Liga MX teams had actually beaten an MLS team in. And I think one of those was even on penalties. The advantage that MLS teams have, and I think it's specifically true with what we had, is that at a tactical level, we do have an advantage. We play better as a team, and where they have a lot of technical ability, we have the edge in physicality and size and speed. Chivas, it seemed like the whole game, their only tactical schema was in attack, anyways, was to go down the flanks and then send something in for like a cross and hope that someone gets a header or a second touch off of a bounce. And Rodriguez and Beeson were just on it, constantly clearing balls. And Gressel too. I remember he was dropping pretty deep too to get those clearances, and even Anan was putting in a huge defensive effort.
And even after we scored that goal, I thought that the way Quakes defended was really good, especially Rodriguez. And of course, having Danielle back was such a nice thing to see. And there are a few occasions where Chivas would have a strike on goal, whether it be from distance or what have you, and Danielle just looked comfortable. It was his first, being in front of like a record-setting attendance for Leagues Cup as your first game back after like various months out injured, and to come in with that much confidence and security in yourself is very admirable, and I think it speaks a lot to his personality. And yeah, no, just good to see him back. And I think also, there have been a few times where I've seen Rodriguez and Danielle before a game or what have you, just kind of like hanging out with each other. They're both from Brazil, so it makes sense. But I think having that relationship there probably has it helps the both of them kind of feel more comfortable, and they can both trust in each other as well.
Definitely helps speaking the same language fluently. I was definitely not expecting him to be back this early. I remember when we played in Portland, which was, I believe it was in May, like mid-May. I'd actually ran into Chris Leach, and one of the things that I'd asked about was how the recoveries were going for Danielle and JT. And the way he was putting it, it seemed like it was still multiple months. And since May, it's only been what, like two or so months.
Yeah.
I honestly wasn't expecting to see Danielle back until like September, October, if even that. But it was huge to see him back. And I mean, we'll get to the penalties later, but even before then, he was playing really, really well. I think he had five saves out of 6 shots on target. That's roughly like 83% shot stopping. And then I went over and I compared like Jacob Jackson and William Yarbrough just this season. And compared to that, Jacob Jackson has like a 50% shot stopping rate, and Yarbrough it's about 40% more or less. I mean, again, it's one game, so you can't assume that that'll be his performance like throughout the whole year. Even with the percentages aside, like you think about the shots that Jacob Jackson has been taking and Yarbrough, there's a difference between taking shots from Sacramento, Portland, I don't know who else, like Minnesota, and then going up against Chivas in a game of this magnitude with a crowd of this magnitude. And so it just really
Yeah.
speaks volumes to how good Danielle has been. And it's been a huge reason for why this season has been so difficult. It's because he hasn't been here.
Also, the confidence that he has too is immense. And yeah, like you said,
Hmm.
I really do think that it was nice to see Danielle and to see kind of get that feeling again of, having that solidity. I think Yarbrough especially has done a pretty good job, and it's not like he was coming into this team expecting to get the minutes that he was. That was never really the plan.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I do think that he's done well for for a third string keeper. He's done well, but I think it's still nice to have, and I think as a fan too, you just have a bit more anxiety. We scored that goal early, and we're just kind of the way, whether it be the way Ian Russell plays or what have you, kind of we're going to be facing a lot more danger than we otherwise might like as a fan. But it's still good to see maybe, a Chivas player lining up for a shot or seeing a shot on frame, and then you kind of start like wincing a little bit. But
Hmm.
Danielle just very calmly just like grabs it out of the air, takes a few minutes off the clock too. And again, like he didn't play. This is his first game, right? So his
Yeah.
fitness is probably not there all the way, and to have that much be that busy. And I mean, you can see it at the end of the game, like they were literally like doing the best they could to just stay on their 2 feet. Like
Hmm.
even standing up was seemed difficult for him and Rodriguez. So yeah, it's a very nice surprise to see him and to see that he didn't need any time to get back into things. He just came back and he was
Hmm.
the same Danielle we've been used to from last season.
And the praise isn't just for him. It's every single player on this team played a phenomenal game. I'd say that this is probably like a top three, if not top performance for us the entire season. And a big part of that was Danielle. A big part of that was Rodriguez. Equally so, though, is players that have been criticized, not necessarily by us, but just fans in general. They all played really well. Jeremy, not just in this game, but in against the Galaxy as well, has shown that he has his touch back, he has his finishing back. And Gressel too, the coverage was crazy. Rodriguez did lead in every single defensive stat except for I think it was recoveries. And in recoveries outside of Daniel because he's goalkeeper, so they just naturally get a lot of recoveries. It was Gressel as the second one, and Yueill too. I think there was a lot of deep progressive passes. I know there's a lot of naysayers of Yueill that say is, a lot of back passing or side passing. I disagree with those things. I do think that he provides a lot going forward. But in this game specifically, he was sending deep balls to Espinosa and Nantu doing a lot of defensive duties all around the field. And I did lose a couple balls, but it's just the nature of him wanting to be that dribbler. And although it's frustrating to see him lose so many balls, I think I kind of forgive it just because if you recover the balls that you lose, it should be forgiven, or if you recover a ball and then lose it, it should also be forgiven, depending on where on the field, obviously. But yeah, overall, everyone played really, really well.
And it's just unfortunate that at the end, what happened with the ref. And I don't know, honestly, like from what I've seen from Liga MX, I know it
To
can
be
be
expected.
pretty dramatic
Yeah.
to put it lightly, I guess. But yeah, I think that it was pretty egregious what the referee did with Rodriguez not letting him back on the field. And it was like he just took it personally. And honestly, like, yeah, and you just listed out the statistics that Rodriguez has. Like, I don't think that, like, ask anybody and you're gonna be exhausted, cramping up. like when that's happening. Like maybe, of course there's gonna be a little bit of, running down the clock, but I don't think it was to the degree of not letting him back on the field and just to get it to that level where you're just like abusing the authority that you have as the referee is just not
Hmm.
okay. And to be honest, I do think that very possible that the atmosphere contributes to that, to the
Hmm.
decision that the referee takes to not let him back on. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
unfortunate, and of course, again, Chivas did hit the post, so and there were some times where maybe some luck went our way, and you could argue that, oh well, Chivas earned the goal, I suppose, or that a draw was merited. I could see that, but at the same time, like to still though, like it hurts when that is the one that goes in, right?
I think the timing too, like if you think about mentality wise, you have to go into penalty kicks knowing that you just conceded and you were just seconds away, moments away from just having the full 3 points and having one foot solidly out of the group. It's just
Yeah,
there's a lot of merit for the players that did step up to take penalties and Daniel too with blocking the first
definitely.
shot. That's huge.
Yeah,
It sets all the momentum and then I mean Cade Cowell too. We haven't
our
talked
old
about him at all.
friend. Yeah, yeah, I thought Cal had a good game. He looked very dangerous, but at the same time, as you might expect, near the end of the game when players started going down, Cal was definitely getting involved in the disputes
Hmm.
with the ref and with Jackson Yueill for whatever reason. I feel like them two were kind of getting at it. It probably was just like, like just like you see your old guy that you used to share a locker room with. And you start I don't think it's anything personal or anything, but yeah, and then yeah, to see I think it was Paul Marie who missed his penalty and then to have Cal
Hmm.
basically just one
Do the
up
same but
him.
worse.
Yeah, yeah, like one up him in that department was yeah. I don't want to say like I wish that on Cade or anything like that, but it
I
was
do.
definitely kind of like a tragic it's like a comedic tragedy or something like that. It's like, of course, it was Cade that whiffs the penalty, kinda like written in
No.
this type of thing.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. I remember the numbers that he had for us in 2023, and it's like it's like the same thing. So, but
Yeah,
I also am not as warm to Cade as the average Quakes fan.
yeah,
And I think the last thing that I'll say on this is that I think it strongly played into our favor that Liga or not Liga mix, but Chivas don't really know our play style that well, and I don't think that they understood how much we rely on Christian Espinosa and his playmaking of just running down the field and whipping it in. With them obviously getting a goal really early in the game, I think that really, really helped mentally. I don't know if it's like the biggest contributing factor, but it's probably a big contributing factor of why he then went on to have a great game and again against Galaxy as well.
yeah, definitely, and yeah, to kind of segue into that, what were your thoughts on the Galaxy game?
It was a high stakes game, and at least for me personally, I felt like it was just as high stakes as the Chivas game. The Quakes, at least for me, is the story of the underdog, and so when we have these kind of games, they mean a lot to me. And having lost the first three to LA, and I mean even all the battles that we've had with LA, like I always want to win these games, and I always go into them thinking that we can. And maybe that's just the Quakesaholic in me of just blind faith. But out of the four that we've played this season, I think this was the best one in terms of like like the opportunity for us to actually get a result, just because of our form and how the
Definitely,
team clicked and just all the momentum from the Chivas game. Like, what is it, 4 days later to go in? Like, I can't think of a better scenario to go into the game, and knowing that we just need to tie this game and then it doesn't even matter what happens in penalties and we'd be out of the group stage. I think Galaxy had a lot more to lose going into this game than we did. Probably a lot of Quakes fans felt the same way. The crowd, I personally don't remember a better turnout for a Wednesday night game. I feel like Wednesday night games are always super dead because people work and whatever, whatever. But I don't know if it was just because Leagues Cup or the Chivas win, whatever it was. I was really glad to see so many people at the stadium. And then also the ultra section, Seismic Union, were as packed as I remember them being all season. And so that was
yeah,
also really refreshing. Like you didn't see any gaps. And with the season that like what we've had, it's understandable to not see as much turnout. In terms of the actual game though, which is probably what you were asking me, I think LA played the same way that they played in the first three games. The biggest strengths, obviously, Ricky Pooch and transitions, counterattacks, and playing fast with Peck and Painsil. I think the biggest reason that we played better is because our defensive form actually held up. I feel like we've seen this in so many games that as soon as a counterattack starts, our back line just turns into like a squiggly line. Like we just can't hold our shape. And it feels like defenders are running to get back into position rather than actually defending and marking. And I feel like we did really well with that. The goals that we conceded, it's unfortunate. One is what I would describe as the wonder goal, the first one. What more can Yarbrough do? What more can the defenders do? And then the one right at the end of the game is deflating, but players are tired, legs are tired. And I also think that going five in the back definitely hurt us.
To kind of start where you started, I think that the atmosphere was really good. The Galaxy started off kind of slow. I think that Quakes had a lot of chances that they should have finished, to be honest with you, in the first 30 minutes or so. I can think of a few distinct ones from Pellegrino, and there was that one where it's just kind of like shambles and like three players just kind of like try to shoot it. There are a few that just get shot too close to the goalkeeper, and he does well to get to ground to save them. But yeah, I think Quick started off. They were they were attacking well. They were going for it. Ricky Pooch seemed to be having some of his passes intercepted. Part of that could be like we've seen up until this point with under Ian Russell. There's just a bit more solidity in the back, so those gaps just aren't what they used to be. I thought that Ricky Pooch took him some time to really get into the game, and then like you said with the goal, personally, especially looking back at it, I didn't really notice this in person, but yeah, the Diego Fagundes goal is yeah, it is a
Mhm.
good goal. It's a good finish, but I do think that, he's going down the wing, and then I just feel like the there's maybe a miscommunication, or for whatever reason, when he starts cutting in, Benji wants to hold his position as the right back, and then Gresso doesn't really put pressure on fast enough. So there's like a bit of time in between Benji kind of letting him off and Gresso putting that pressure in, and that's when Fagundes, kind of like lines up and hits the shot with some curve. And that was unfortunate. I also know that Ian Russell said in the post game interview that he specifically singled out Diego Fagundes and singled out the fact that he likes to cut in and shoot. So knowing that, I feel like he probably isn't going to be too happy with with that goal. But like you said too, it is a great finish. And there's basically nothing Yaro can do about that.
Mhm.
The second goal, maybe like you said, they were pretty tired up until that point because we kind of saw it near the I feel like at the end of both halves, you kind of saw Galaxy growing into the game. Ricky was on the ball a lot more, and once they would move up and Earthquakes were fine seeding some yards and just kind of sitting back, you saw Ricky kind of that area just in front of the penalty box. He was making good combinations. It was difficult to follow. I thought, especially seeing it in person, they were doing a good job at making combinations right in front of the penalty box. It's just difficult for any team to keep up with. But overall, though, once that ball got into the box, I thought they defended it pretty well. It's just unfortunate that, the way that that second Galaxy goal happens. It's a great ball from Mickey Pooch, and then to bring it down like that, it was just all kind of happened really quickly. And like we said, by that point, it was already the 88th minute, and they looked pretty tired.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunate, and it's something we've seen many times. For you could put the blame. We've talked about Lucci, we've talked about individual players, whatever, but it is just kind of unfortunate how many times we have conceded late goals like that and in those kind of decisive moments.
And again, this is hindsight, right? But the five in the back, I was rewatching the last 20 minutes of the game, and it did well in holding down the fort when, the ball gets in the box. But I think the problem was just that with a player like Ricky Pooch, you can't give him space. And taking out Hernan playing five in the back, it just opened up so much space for Ricky Pooch. And even besides that goal, because I mean, Ian Russell talked about this, that like a ball over the top shouldn't be an issue if you have five. And I mean, it happened, right? But even aside
Yeah.
from that, Pooch was getting so much space to just take shots from distance. And they weren't bad shots. They were good shots. They challenged Yarbrough twice. And I remember when we were in the stadium, we were holding our breath, just hoping that he can get a hand on it or something. And especially too with it not being Daniel, you just don't have that kind of confidence. Whereas like when Chivas was taking those long shots, we could just watch those for days and we knew that it just wasn't going to score a goal on them. But with Yarbrough, it's just a different story. And I do think that Yarbrough did play a good game. It's just that compared to Daniel and coming off the performance that we had seen against Chivas, it's a tough comparison. But Rodriguez, I think, again, was a man of the match candidate. Ibobasi as well, definitely between them two. The goal that we scored, it made me really happy because the three players that were involved, which were Yueill, Gruezo, and Ibobasi, those are the three most criticized players by fans. And so to see them have that moment, it makes me really happy. They've had a really good Leagues Cup thus far.
Yeah, definitely. And I see why you have questions about the decision. I think for me personally, more so than whether it be 4 or 5 in the back, my biggest thing was from the perspective of Daniel Muni, like that is high intensity situation to just come into. And he's a
Hmm.
professional, that's expected to him, but you know, still, right? Like that's still like the game is going to be very fast. The way that LA Galaxy play, they play with a lot of speed and they move the ball
Hmm.
well. And to come into that, it's difficult. And for that reason, maybe like you said, keeping Hernan, who we know does not shy away from his defensive responsibilities. Maybe having that person there still who can put more pressure in that area just in front of the penalty box that we were talking about earlier, where Galaxy was, making a lot of combinations, and that can make it very difficult for you as a defender, or just as a midfielder, whatever it may be. If you're defending, when that happens, when the ball is getting played around like that, it's difficult not to leave gaps or leave holes, and it can pick apart a defense very well. That being said, again, like it was a ball over the top, and I think that overall they defended pretty well. But yeah, I think that you're right. Maybe if you leave Hernan in there or put in another midfielder like Morales or someone who can
Hmm.
pressure put pressure on Ricky, that probably would have served better than another center back, because I felt like they were defending pretty well in the box. And like you said, it was mainly the danger right outside of the area that was the biggest concern.
I mean, that's what I was going to say actually of bringing in Morales. And it's not to say that Lopez can't come out. It's just that if you're going to take him out because he's tired, there's other options than just putting five in the back. And if we have to sacrifice a position to achieve that five in the back, I would have much preferred it being Pellegrino coming off and we just play like a 5-3-2 instead of a 5-2-3. And
Right.
then, yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, the good thing is that we still have a chance of getting out of the group. And I think that is something that most Quakes fans were probably not expecting. And we are probably very happy with the situation given the circumstances that have been this entire season. And it's going to come down to whether or not Galaxy can beat Chivas. And obviously, I don't want to root for Galaxy ever, but I do think that they can get a result from based on what we saw. I think
I think
Chivas,
objectively they should, and they're the better. They are the better team. Like just
yeah, yeah.
regardless of what our interests are and, and like what we want, like they just are the better team. Another thing too
Hmm.
that maybe could be part of the explanation as to why MLS teams have been dominating Liga MX teams up until this point is the fact that I think the the way that the Liga MX calendar is, they just started. I don't know if it's the Clausura, but they're like 3-4 games in to La Clausura. I don't know if they have like a break in between La Apertura or La
Yeah, I
Clausura.
remember having seen that as well. I think they had like 8 games though. Oh no, you're right. It is 4 games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I
So
mean, that's the advantage that they have in Champions Cup or whatever they want to call it now, right? Like the Champions League.
yeah, yeah, you're right.
It's
So regardless, I do think that LA Galaxy are in the middle of their season. They're first in the West, and Chivas, as you already seen, tactically don't have too much going on. They have good individual players. On the wings, they have players who can get a yard off a defender, but I do think that Galaxy is probably going to go into that game having a lot of control, having a lot of possession, and then still having, Penso and Peck for those moments of transition that Earthquakes seem to have, that hurt Chivas in the
mhm.
game wise. So, you know, we'll see, but yeah, as long as LA Galaxy is the ultimate winner in the end, even if it's on penalties, Earthquakes will be going to the knockout phase of the League's Cup.
Yeah, and we'd be playing. It'd be the group that the Sounders and Minnesota United are in. I don't remember who from the Gamek is there. Nikaha, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his team.
Okay, I think I've heard of them. Yeah. Well,
In all reality, like they're not going to make out of the group because Sounders won the first game, and I think Minnesota won their game. So I think they both have 3 points. Let me check the standings. Yeah, 0, 3, and 3. So
wow. Yeah, honestly, and I would not mind a game against Minnesota or Sounders compared to the other MLS opponents that we could be facing. I think
mhm.
Sounders and Minnesota are two of the most favorable that we could have. Sounders is a good team, but as we've seen, Earthquakes seem to be like their kryptonite for whatever reason.
Yeah,
And that game against Minnesota, I feel like Earthquakes should have a chip on their shoulder because they played very well against Minnesota and probably deserve the result there as well.
yeah, and I don't remember how the home seed works. I know that for group stage, it was whoever placed higher in the standings the year previous. But then
Hmm.
for when you first get out, because if you look at the bracket, it's like first place of our group plays second place of this group F, and then vice versa, right? So I don't know if it's like whoever comes out as the first seed gets the home field, or if it's based on standings. If it is based on standings, we would be hosting Minnesota, but we would have to travel to Seattle. Should it be based off of last year's standings?
Either way, our fate will be decided on this
Yeah, pretty sure it's Sunday.
Sunday. I wish both Chivas and Galaxy could lose, but unfortunately, you probably want Galaxy to win. I think that if Earthquakes can get into the knockout phase of Leagues Cup, like you said, it's something that a lot of fans would not have expected before Leagues Cup. And I think that it would be a nice, gleaming accomplishment in a very rough season. That was our recap of the group stage for San Jose Earthquakes in the Leagues Cup. Thank you guys for listening, and hopefully, this will not be the final episode where we talk about Leagues Cup.
Once we figure out how far the Quakes went, I want to talk about Leagues Cup versus Open Cup.
Yeah, if you told us at the beginning of the season which tournament the Earthquakes would seemingly have more success in, and if we do make it at the knockout stage, it definitely would not have been my choice before the season had started to pick Leagues Cup. But that is to be seen. We will know on Sunday. But for now, that's all from me, Luis and Kevin on Quakesaholics. And so thank you guys for listening.
Catch you next time.